Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. So I'm delighted to welcome our three speakers, Professor Miranda Forsyth, Ali Maloney, and Thérèse Mema Mapenzi. So Miranda is a professor and social legal researcher in the School of Regulation and Global Governance, RegNet, at the Australian National University, and she's director of the International Network Against Accusations of Witchcraft and Associated Harmful Practices. She has research interests in legal pluralism, restorative justice, crime and peace, and works predominantly in Melanesia. She's led a research agenda on overcoming sorcery accusation-related violence in Papua New Guinea since 2013 and is the author of many articles and other resources on the topic. Ali Maloney is a nurse academic and researcher whose work focuses on strengthening health systems across Papua New Guinea and the Pacific region. Her research focuses on sorcery accusation-related violence, gender-based violence, and the health system impacts of extreme and structural violence. She works collaboratively with Pacific partners to generate context-specific evidence that informs culturally safe, trauma-informed service delivery, with the aim to generate policy reform. Ali is committed to co-design and local partnership, and her work prioritizes collaboration with in-country stakeholders to support sustainable, locally driven solutions that advance gender equity, cultural safety, and health system resilience across the Pacific. And our third speaker is Thérèse Mema Mapenzi, who is a women's rights activist from the DRC. She holds a master's degree in peace building from Coventry University in the UK and a BA in English and African cultures from ISP Bukavu in the Democratic Republic of Congo. She has extensive theoretical and practical experience in addressing gender-based violence, psychosocial care to traumatized people, conflict transformation, women, peace and security, supported by the 1325 resolution, women, leadership and advocacy. For the past 18 years, Thérèse has worked alongside survivors of sexual and gender-based violence in South Kivu and has shared her expertise with numerous national and international organizations. In recognition of her commitment to combating gender-based violence, Thérèse has received several prestigious awards. So I'm delighted to welcome our three speakers today, and the title of today's seminar is The Intersection of Sexual Violence and Contemporary Witchcraft Accusations. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, well, thanks so much for that introduction and welcome, Charlotte. I'm the first speaker, and I'm going to basically set the stage for Ali and for Thérèse to go in more depth into our topic. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everybody can now see my PowerPoint. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to be talking really about the use of sexual violence in relation to witchcraft accusations. Oh, Mary, we might put you on mute. And I really wanted to set out some of the different types of sexual violence against accused persons. Afterwards, I'll talk about a different form of sexual violence that's also related in this area, more so to ritual attacks and less so to witchcraft accusations. But for the moment, I'm just going to focus on some of the different types of sexual violence against accused persons. So the first is what we're calling forced undressing, and sometimes accompanied by naked parading. And this is the most extensively documented form of sexual violence associated with witchcraft accusations. It's been identified in India, Nepal, PNG, and multiple countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And it really functions to dehumanize and to destroy the accused's identity, to assert power and control over them. It facilitates further violence through this dehumanizing function, because once the survivor is dehumanized through the undressing, then further violence, often sexual violence, follows. And it also is a form of public ritual humiliation. Uh, our colleague Anand has said sexual humiliation serves to symbolically expel women from the moral community, legitimizing further violence against them. And that's come out of some detailed research that he has done into these practices in India. So the second most prevalent form of sexual violence in this space is rape and the sexual assault of accused persons. And this has been documented in India, Papua New Guinea, and many countries in sub-Saharan Africa. I think it's important at this point to note that sexual violence, from what we can tell, is associated with witchcraft accusations only in particular countries. So it's not necessarily a widespread phenomenon. And we are still trying to understand why it is prevalent in some countries and not in other countries. So this is very much the research that we're presenting at the moment is the beginning of a research agenda into this space. There are three different forms that rape takes in this particular context. So the first of all, the first one is where accusations are really used as a pretext to rape women. And here we've got two sort of classic examples. The first is where maybe a woman has resisted the advances of a particular individual, and then that individual makes an accusation of witchcraft as a way really of opening up the ability to rape that person. And there's been a number of documented cases like that, particularly in India. And then there is the phenomenon of witch doctors who will claim that the victim, the accused, is possessed by spirits, by demons, and needs to have those exorcised in a particular way that often involves then rape or some other form of sexual assault. And that's been again documented quite widely, certainly in many parts of the Pacific where I work. We also have the scenario where accusations are used to cover up rape by discrediting the victim. So a victim will be raped, and then if the rapist is concerned that the victim is going to go and to raise a complaint with the authorities or with their families, then making a claim of witchcraft, an accusation of witchcraft, really, renders that that survivor a persona non grata. People aren't going to take them seriously. It deflects the attention away from the original rapist. And then we have the third type of rape, which is where it's really used as part of the torture process that that occurs. Um, and this we've been documenting quite extensively in Papua New Guinea, and Ali is going to be speaking about that. It often takes the form of gang rape or repeated rape. And in that regard, we're still trying to work out what are the motivations that are underlying this form of rape. But it seems that there's a number of well-established theories that explain gang rape, for example, that do have relevance to this context. So one is that individuals lose their individual identity and become part of a collective identity. And within that collective identity, then raping the witch is actually the accepted norm, rather than being something that is contrary to the usual norms of society. It's also been argued that gang rape forms is a way of really male bonding. So everybody's engaging in this conduct together, and that is strengthening the social bonds between the men involved. And that's particularly noticed in contexts where men do not otherwise have access to other forms of power and authority and legitimacy. And certainly that would apply in contexts such as Papua New Guinea, where often the youths who are doing the rape are those who don't have an education pathway. They often are not in formal employment, and so they're searching for other forms to assert their identity and their manhood. The third type of sexual assault that we've identified is the genital torture of accused persons. And this is particularly prevalent in Papua New Guinea, as Ali is going to discuss in more detail. So I probably won't go into so much detail here. One of the, what theories help to explain this? A question is, does it signal that the accused woman's femininity and reproductive capacity are the specific object of community sanction? So this is things that we're investigating. I'm saying women there because in the vast majority of cases that have been documented around the world, in relation to witchcraft accusations, then sexual violence is perpetrated on women rather than on men. There is rape against men in the context of torture when we're talking about state torture. But when we're talking about this kind of torture by non-state actors, then we haven't seen so many cases of sexual violence. Although we have heard anecdotally of a few cases where men, for example, have had their penises cut off and their testicles mutilated, but that forms just a very small number of cases. Of course, with all of these cases, it is extremely difficult to get any kind of credible evidence. I also wanted to mention the digital amplification of sexual violence that we see happening, particularly in Papua New Guinea, but in other parts of the world as well. So this sexual violence is increasingly being filmed and then circulated on social media such as WhatsApp or Facebook pages. This, of course, compounds the original trauma. It extends it, sometimes indefinitely, and it inflicts this secondary harm as well on the families of the accused and on their communities when they encounter that footage. I also have a question about whether or not this is spreading these particular forms of violence against the accused. So when people from one community see that this is the way that another community has treated an accused witch, does that then lead them to use those forms of violence? And in some of the work that I've done with my colleague Philip Gibbs, we've talked about behavioural scripts that seem to be transmitted from one community to another. And I wonder if sexual violence is one of these behavioural scripts that is being transmitted. In terms of the explanations for it, is it in some way extending the spectacle and hence the assertion of domination over the accused? So I mentioned that there's another form of sexual violence that's associated to this space, and that is rape and sexual violence in the belief of ritual benefit. So in many parts of the world, we find that sexual violence is perpetrated on women in the belief that it's going to confer some sort of supernatural protection or healing power. It takes different forms in different countries. For example, in a number of countries in sub-Saharan Africa, there are these ideas about virgin cleansing myths. So if you have sex with a virgin girl, then you will be cleansed of HIV or some other type of disease. So that's an associated form of sexual violence. but not, it's not the focus of what we are looking at in particular today. So in terms of the advocacy and the research implications of this nexus, I think it's really important to stress that, you know, in general, witchcraft accusations and associated violence are very difficult to document. There's not a lot of mainstream data about it, but the sexual violence element is even more hidden, more difficult to uncover. So despite the fact that survivor testimonies often refer to it, we find in official reports there are very few references to it. So these cases are often only recorded by authorities when we're talking about murders, or maybe when we're talking about grievous bodily harm, but it's very, very rare that you'll find recorded court cases, for example, that also mention the fact, oh yes, there was also rape, there was also public undressing, there was also some form of genital mutilation. So we would argue that there is a real need to document and to highlight the sexualized violence that is associated with witchcraft accusations. And this is needed to ensure that there are meaningful interventions. So understanding, for example, the role that undressing plays in terms of enabling further violence is really important in that regard. We think it's also important to allow the correct justice and accountability to come for the victims as well. So that's why Ali, myself, Thérèse, and George, who's just joined us as well, we are engaged in the process of trying to write a human rights report about this phenomenon to really tease out that nexus between sexual violence and witchcraft accusations, and we would like that to be the focus of the next International Day Against Witch Hunts as well, which will be, as we're all aware, on the 10th of August. So I'm going to, well, I'm happy to take questions, but I think we will first of all move on to Ali and then on to Thérèse, and then we can take questions at the end. So
Sure.
Ali, on to you now, and I'll just move your PowerPoint along.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. So I'm going to be speaking specifically about Papua New Guinea. That's where I've been focused for the last 5 years. So just to give a very brief overview of Papua New Guinea, it's referred to as SARV, which is sorcery accusation related violence. And it's a frequent occurrence in many provinces. It used to be more common in some provinces over others, but what has been shown from Miranda and her colleagues' research, and also from data that I've been collecting and able to discern, is that there are a lot of displaced people in PNG. And so with that displacement comes suspicion and comes the movement of these harmful practices. In many provinces, particularly in the Southern Highlands, there are, accusations occurring daily, and a lot of those, if not most of them, are occurring in violence and extended torture and breaches of human rights. The accusations don't always lead to violence, but the vast majority of them that we're hearing about are, and they're resulting in considerable harm to survivors. It is very gendered in particular provinces. There are more females in Southern Highlands than males, same as in Western Highlands, whereas in Bougainville and a few other areas, particularly highlighted by Miranda and her colleagues' work, it has been quite male focused. The biggest issue in the gendered perspective here is, in all of the cases that I have been involved in hearing reports from either survivors, perpetrators, or healthcare workers, or people rescuing the survivors, is that there hasn't been any males that have had any sort of rape or genital mutilation, and there are no males that have had any implements inserted into their anus. With the sexual assault, every female accusation that has led to harm, I've not come across a case so far. I can't say that it hasn't occurred where there has not been sexual violence. And sexual violence, as Miranda lays out, starts with public undressing. So that's sexual assault. And then we're leading into more of the violent components of it. I've not come across any case studies as yet from any reports with and discussions with people where there's not been any level of sexual assault. Sexual assault is happening in the forms of gang rape, so rape through penis, and then often it's also implements, and then it's also occurring in mutilation of the genitals. And the mutilation of the genitals is not just the vagina, it's also including sometimes a breast might be completely cut off with a bush knife, or sometimes it might just be the nipple that's removed. Don't know what the reasoning behind that is. I've not had any cases that I've spoken to survivors or to healthcare workers about where it has been both breasts. It's only ever been one. But these are the levels of the extreme violence that are occurring in PNG at the moment. So with this, yes, please. So it's leading to significant harm to the genitals. And what's happening is these women are having sharpened implements inserted into both their vagina or their rectum. This can be in the form of bamboo that's sharpened into a point, sticks that they've just picked up, bush knives, or any other implement that is around. And in some cases, when people have gone to rescue survivors, they've actually exsanguinated, which means that they've bled out all of the blood in their body because of the intense force of these implements that were inserted into their vagina or their rectum, because what's happened is actually pierced in through the peritoneal into our tummy. So it's just bled and bled and bled and bled. So there is significant harm, obviously, that happens to these women. And even if they do survive, the issues after the event become another form of harm, obviously. The impact on the person, we're looking at things that are becoming more widely known, and that's called a traumatic fistula. A fistula is where there is an abnormal opening, and what happens is it's because of the force of the sexual violence. And there are two types of fistulas. There's one that's called a vesicovaginal fistula, which is where the bladder is impacted. And it just means, as awful as it sounds, that the woman has no level of continence. So they will just leak urine all the time. Now, I want you to think just for a few minutes that this is occurring in Papua New Guinea, in a place where 20% of the population have power, and most times running water is also around that percentage as well. Access to water is not the problem, but it's running water and clean water. Then the other type of fistula is a rectovaginal fistula, which is where the bowel is involved, and this is where the woman will leak both fecal and urine fluid, and the fistula itself is very painful. It is caused by severe genital trauma during sexual assault. There are other forms of fistula, and they're often referred to as obstetric fistula, and they occur from women having children too close together, for example. Traumatic fistulas, even in the namesake, are far more difficult to repair, and they must be repaired surgically. Currently in Papua New Guinea, there's one surgeon who operates out of Port Moresby and charges a lot of money. So women do not have access to this. The impact of this is, despite surviving their ordeal throughout the days of torture, throughout being gang raped and having this extreme sexual violence occur to them, they often die from sepsis because of the inability to repair the fistula. Secondary to this, they're shunned by communities because the smell. They're also seen as being marked or damaged because it is very clear from the other injuries that they have been accused of witchcraft or of being a sanguma. It's me. I just wanted to very quickly give, this is just a very brief like a snippet from a survivor who I spoke to earlier this year. And she counted these lacerations. She had 82 lacerations from a bush knife. Most of them were across her abdomen, and she had 15 lacerations down her right arm in a stripe. She had cuts to both of her breasts, but only one nipple was completely removed, and the other nipple remained intact. She recalls being raped at least 3 times by many men, but was unable to count. She tested positive for chlamydia. She can recall foreign bodies, such as sticks and rocks, being inserted into her vagina, as well as flames being held to her labia, thighs, buttocks, and breasts. She had all of the bottom of her feet burned with flames as well. This lady is still alive, but she has required care for the past 6 months in a safe house. And she still is at a high risk for death because of the ongoing sepsis concern because of those injuries. And that's just one survivor's story. And so I'll hand over to Thérèse now.
Thank you very much for the floor. I don't know if Miranda can share my video, my presentation.
I never got it from you, Thérèse.
I
Have
can
you
put it
sent
up.
it to me?
Just now. I'll pop it up.
Oh, great.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to share with you my ground experience related to the support of the survivors of witchcraft accusation in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So this is the link between sexual violence and witchcraft accusation. This second, yes. The Democratic Republic of Congo is in the heart of Africa. This is what I usually say. But we are a country which is fueled by war. Many women continue to pay the consequences of war and the bad governance. And the consequences are many, including the sexual violence and this witchcraft accusation. But in this context, women are double victims. Victims first of war because their bodies are used as weapon of war. And when the people are fighting, in one side, they want to use the bodies of women to get power, as Miranda said, to justify what they are doing, but also to break the family's harmony and also to entertain fear into the communities. On the other side, after conflict, the women who were raped are sometimes accused of witchcraft because if they lose war, if they didn't win what they were intended to gain, the women didn't help them. And in this context, the cultural aspects is really at the main of these big consequences, the troubles that the women undergo. The causes of sexual violence and witchcraft accusation are many and all depends on the areas. But in this presentation, I'm going to share with you some of the cases I listened to and how we accompany the people, and also the ways suggest for the better future for them. Next slide, please. So before I start, this is Francesca. I asked for her permission to share the video, the photo. Francesca was 55 years when we met her. She was married, and this is her story. My husband was ill for a long time, and we didn't have the means to take him to hospital. Despite asking his family and our neighbors to help, his family accused of causing his illness and even told my husband that I was the witch. As a result, I was taken to a traditional healer to cure my husband and to prove whether I was a witch. The healer forced me to sleep with him for 5 days, threatening to kill me or to denounce that I will be a witch. I did it because I was afraid of being killed. Unfortunately, he didn't respect what he promised me. After raping me, he delivered me to the community. Despite everything, my husband remained convinced that I was a witch. So this is the story of Francisca. Francisca is one of the 400 women that we met. She have this story, but there are so many stories that we have from different women, and all depends on the area, on the places. And we accompany women from Kinshasa, Dungu, Doruma, and South Kivu. Next slide, please. As I said, the consequences, the causes may be many, but mainly we have poverty. When people are unable to respond to their family needs, at the case of Francesca, when people have problems, they have to find who is responsible to justify their misery. When people are ill, they are jobless, this witchcraft accusation comes on the table. There is also the religious belief. There are some pastors, people of God, calling themselves people of God, prophets, who play the main role in this confirming if someone is a witch or not. There is also family conflicts. For example, in many cases, when there is a death, people want to inherit the goods that they have, or they have to chase the children away from the family and benefit from the goods of the parents. Then the children are mostly accused of being witched and rejected. The belief in magic, many people think that in the body of women, especially those who are still virgin, they have power to get money, to get position in the world, and many people rape and accuse the women's body to be witch. So especially when they go for a main, for instance, a man wants to become a rich man to succeed in his business, he rapes a small girl, and if he fails to succeed, he says this woman is a witch, she didn't help her. And so, as I said, many people believe that women possess power, and this can heal, as Miranda said, especially the small children. They think that if a small child is raped, this can heal HIV. And now, if you observe all these causes of witchcraft accusation, you see that many people just want to justify the weaknesses. It has nothing to do with the body of women, but to justify why they did this. We have also many cases where men just rape for their sexual desire, and then they justify, if I raped because of this or that. Next slide, please. So I didn't want to threaten the audience, but I think it was just important to show the picture of what women undergo. It's really horrible when you see the children, men with wood, stick, trying to kill one person who is in the middle of the cycle. And when they do this, they don't hide anything. They do it during the day, in the presence of the children, in the presence of the whole community. And then they start to kill the woman. Sometimes they will introduce woods, they introduce stick in the sexual organ of the woman. And even if she cries, even if she begs for pardon, no one understands, because the community is like a hell. Just killing is the aim. So after this killing, or after this witchcraft accusation, if the woman had means to escape, she's excluded in the community, and she becomes homeless. She has sometimes physical abuse, and sometimes she dies. Sometimes the children, her own children, are forced to stone her or to reject her. And there are also many cases of rape and isolation. Next slide, please. So for this, we need to organize a special accompaniment of the people, and we deal in Bukavu, Kinshasa, and Ho-Uele, the holistic care for the survivors. First of all, we organized the community awareness to inform the community that women are not witches. They are mothers, they are grandmothers, and they need protection from the people. If someone is ill, nothing can heal this person if they don't go to hospital. They should respect this. We also involve the police and the leaders, but most of the time, some of the leaders are corrupted and they are convinced that these women are also witches. So it's not easy to accompany the people accused of witch. Sometimes myself, they say, oh, maybe you have something to do with them. Why are you protecting these kind of people? It's not easy to accompany the victims of witchcraft accusation. We also deal with psychosocial care because when they are traumatized, they undergo this violence. They need to heal the trauma, and it's a long process for healing them. There is the legal assistance for the victims who know the perpetrators. We go to justice and to put people in jail if necessary. We also need to start livelihoods program for easy community integration. Most of the cases, the houses of the women are burnt, they are rejected, they have to live outside the community. And for this, they need little money to start business, to cultivate, to buy a land, and to start new life. Next slide, please. So these are only the pictures of the community awareness. We use different messages according to the context. Next slide, please. We put strong emphasis on allowing women to share their stories, to speak out, because if they can talk openly about what they underwent, maybe people can change their situation. Maybe people can understand that these people should be protected. And what is horrible is that many of these women were also stoned by their own children. And for them, they are unable sometimes to forgive their children, to forgive their family members. But the process of healing their trauma allows them to forgive, but also to talk with the family and to organize family mediation. Next slide, please. And we think it's very important to organize a networking. Like many countries, Miranda and Ali, we were talking about this situation in Papua Guinea, in Cameroon, in other countries where people underwent the same problems. And I think it's very necessary that we continue to work into a network, and especially following that the international world, the UN, have given us an international day for witchcraft accusation to assist the women in the world. I think it's very important. Next slide, please. So we also continue to deal with advocacy. This was in South Kivu, where I had to talk about this problem on the table with the UN representative, because many people said, no, this is not a topic. It doesn't exist here. But I came with horrible photos. I came with pictures and different stories, and to convince them these are the cases that happened in South Kivu and the name of the people who were saved and others who were killed because of this witchcraft accusation. I also emphasize the link between sexual violence and witchcraft accusation. Following that, many people said, no, we don't recognize this as a problem. And now I'm happy that when we celebrate these international days for women, but also International Day for Witchcraft Accusation, there are many people who understand, who ask us for questions, and who participate in the meeting and conferences that we organize. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, it is the end, yeah. Thank you for following. I think you understood my English. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much to Miranda, Ali, and to you, Thérèse. That was a really interesting presentation and very, very thought-provoking. I'm sure there will be questions. I'm just going to stop the recording and then we can move into question and answers. So we have